Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 3, Text 1. So we'll read the Chapter 3 summary. Rishabdev's appearance in the womb of Meru Devi, the wife of King Nabhi. In this chapter, the spotless character of King Nabhi, the oldest son of Agnitra, is described. Wanting to have sons, Maharaj Nabhi underwent severe austerities and penances. He performed many sacrifices along with his wife and worshipped Lord Vishnu, master of all sacrifices. Being very kind to his devotees, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was very pleased with the austerities of Maharaj Nabhi. Fan. He personally appeared before the king in his four-handed feature, and the priests who were performing the sacrifices began to offer their prayers unto him. They prayed for a son like the Lord, and Lord Vishnu agreed to take birth from the womb of Meru Devi, the wife of King Nabhi, and incarnate as King Rishabdev. So text 1. Shri Shuka Uvacha Nabhirapatya Kamo Prajaya Meru Devya Bhagavantam Yajna Purusham Avahitatma Yajata. This word, Prajaya. Some devotees I've seen, when chanting the verse also they chant Nabhirapatya Kamo Aprajaya. It is not like that. So Aprajaya is only when you are chanting it separately as a word, but when it is chanted together like this, Kamo Prajaya, like that. There is a Sandhi rule of Sanskrit. Nabhirapatya Kamo Prajaya. You don't say Aprajaya when you are chanting together. Only when it's Vichhed, then it is done. In Sandhi it is not done. So synonyms. Sri Shuka Uvacha. Shukadeva Goswami said, Nabhi, the son of Maharaj Agnitra, Apatya Kamaha, desiring to have sons, Aprajaya, who had not given birth to any children, Meru Devya, with Meru Devi, Bhagavantam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhava. Yajna Purusham, Lord Vishnu, the master and enjoyer of all performances of sacrifice. Avahita Atma, with great attention. Ayajata, offered prayers and worshipped. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Shukadeva Goswami continued to speak. Maharaj Nabhi, the son of Agnitra, wished to have sons, and therefore he attentively began to offer prayers and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the master and enjoyer of all sacrifices. Maharaj Nabhi's wife, Meru Devi, who had not given birth to any children at that time, also worshipped Lord Vishnu along with her husband. Please repeat. Shukadeva Goswami continued to speak. Maharaj Nabhi, the son of Agnitra, wished to have sons, and therefore he attentively began to offer prayers and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the master and enjoyer of all sacrifices. Maharaj Nabhi's wife Meru Devi, who had not given birth to any children at the time, also worshipped Lord Vishnu along with her husband. So verse 2. तस्यः वाव श्रद्धया विशुद्धभावेन यजतः प्रवर्ग्येषु प्रचरत्सु द्रव्यदेशकालमन्त्रत्विग्दक्षिणाविधान योगोपपत्त्या दुरधिगमोऽपि भगवान् भागवतवात्सल्यतया सुप्रतीक आत्मानम् अपराजितं निजजनाभिप्रेतार्थविधित्सया हृदयङ्गमम् नयनानन्दनावयवाभिरामम् आविश्चकार नयनानन्दनावयवाभिराम. It's a long word. Vishuddha bhavena, pure Pravargyeshu. While the fruitive activity is called Pravargya, Pracharatsu, Dravya, Desha, Kala, Mantra, Ritvik. Here the word Ritvik. Priest conducting the ceremony. Dakshina, Vidhana, Bhagatya, Pratikama, not obtainable, Api, Bhagavan. Bhagavata Vatsalyatya, Supratika, Atmanam, Aparajitam, Nijajana, Abhipredartha, Viditsaya, Pratita Hridaya, Hridayangamam, Manaha, Nayana Anandanam, pleasing to Avayava, by the limbs, Abhiramam, Avishtakara. Translation and purport by Sivan Grace A. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. In the performance of a sacrifice, there are 7 transcendental means to obtain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 1. By sacrificing valuable things or eatables. 2. By acting in terms of place. 3. By acting in terms of time. 4. By offering hymns. 5. By going through the priest. 6. By offering gifts to the priest. And 7. By observing the regulatory principles. However, one cannot always obtain the Supreme Lord through this paraphernalia. Nonetheless, the Lord is affectionate to his devotee. Therefore, when Maharaj Nabhi, who was a devotee, worshipped and offered prayers to the Lord with great faith and devotion, and with a pure, uncontaminated mind, superficially performing some yajna in the line of Pravargya, the kind Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to his affection for his devotees, appeared before King Nabhi in his unconquerable and captivating form with 4 hands. In this way, to fulfill the desire of his devotee, the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested himself in his beautiful body before his devotee. This body pleases the mind and eyes of the devotees. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said, Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato jnatva vishate tad anantaram. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Bhagavad Gita 18.55. One can understand and see the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the process of devotional service and not in any other way. Although Maharaj Nabhi performed prescribed duties and sacrifices, it should still be considered that the Lord appeared before him not due to his sacrifices but because of his devotional service. It was for this reason that the Lord agreed to appear before him in his beautiful bodily features. As stated in Brahma Samhita 5.30, the Supreme Lord in his original nature is very beautiful, Venum Kvanantamaravindadalayataksam Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, although blackish, is very, very beautiful. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmelitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijanasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here in the previous chapter we have seen how Agnidhra, by the blessings of Lord Brahma, he wanted to actually go to Pitraloka. So he worshipped Lord Brahma to do all these karmakanda sacrifices that can take one to either demigods or Pitraloka. You need a wife. Even when Lord Ramachandra and Sita Devi already left the planet, she went into the earth. Then after that, although he was ruling and he did not marry anyone else, when he had to do yajnas, he had a golden form of Sita made, a deity of Sita Devi. And along with her, he did the sacrifices. So one must have a wife to do this kind of karmakandya sacrifices. So since he wanted to go to Pitraloka, he needed a wife. And as he was meditating in the forest, in the garden near the Meru mountain, what is the garden name was given? So then Brahma sent Purvachitti, a celestial girl, who came and attracted his mind, and he became captivated and married her and lived for many thousands of years in her association, and he gave birth to 9 sons. And the first son is King Nabhi, and so the lineage of Agnitra is being described. And Agnitra is son of Priyavrata. So it's a very glorious dynasty. And although he wanted to, his father was a great devotee, Priyavrata, Agnitra's father. And his son Nabhi also is a great devotee, so much so that he gave birth, with his wife, to Rishabdev, who's directly the personality of God. So such dynasties are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Otherwise, they are just a list of names, and everybody has a family. Everybody has grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather. My father used to draw a chart I mean, he drew a chart once because there was record of our family generations until 10 generations back, and it was something around 1700 or something like that. So he wanted to make a chart. He had the list of names and everything. But and in fact, the other day I was reading Bhaktivinoda Thakur also. He was compiling lineage of his family, and he halfway he gave it up because it was incomplete, and he was even asking if anybody knew anybody of his family or anybody, please give me information, something like that. He wrote. So there was a book like that in one of the many books he has written. Now, of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur illustrates families. Otherwise, it is just a list of names. So why are these dynasties mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam? Sukadeva Goswami actually, remembers so many dynasties. If you read, he sometimes just describes the sons and how many daughters, the names of each of them, and then their dynasties, their descendants, each one of them. Is, he has a database like not even this. That is real intelligence, not like today's artificial intelligence. We may appear intelligent, but actually we are outsourcing to machines. So he, even remembering the names of such purified souls actually is very purifying in itself. There is a verse, forgotten the number. Let me try. Let's gamble. Correct. Jackpot. श्रुतस्य पुंसां सुचिरश्रमस्य नन्वञ्जसा सूरिभिरीडितोऽर्थः तत्तद्गुणानुश्रवणं मुकुन्द पादारविन्दं हृदयेषु येषाम्. Persons who hear from a spiritual master with great labor and for a long time must hear from the mouths of pure devotees about the character and activities of pure devotees. We must hear about the character and activities of pure devotees from the mouths of pure devotees. Pure devotees always think within their hearts of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead who awards his devotees liberation. So here, we will come to this. So Nabhi, the son of Agnitra, the oldest son of Agnitra, is a great devotee. As we can see here, with his wife Merudevi, he gave birth to Rishabhdev. So let's go back there. In this way, Agnidra's life also becomes successful. Father was a great devotee, son was a great devotee, and grandson is the Supreme Personality of God. So here, the second verse is a very important point. In the performance of a sacrifice, there are 7 transcendental means to obtain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now the 7 are mentioned here. Desha, Kala, Dravya and Dravya, and Ritvik, and Dakshina, and I think regulatory principles are what? What is the word? That's yoga, vidhana, regulatory principles. So, duradhigamaha, this is important word. Duradhigama api Bhagavan. So he is actually not, in the sacrifice we have to do this details. But the Lord is bhavagrahi. If we may do a very costly sacrifice, but if there is no devotion, in the karmakanda activities one need not have devotion to the Lord. because one, it's meant for people who are not devotees anyway. They're only interested in their sense gratification. So there's officially some, acceptance of the supremacy of the Lord, because in any yajna you have to worship Vishnu, even if you want to worship a demigod. You have to worship him as a part and parcel of Vishnu. So the sacrifice is offered to Vishnu, and the share of the sacrifice is given to Indra and all these devatas. So there's no devotion actually for the Lord there. Um, but here, although he has done a karmakandya activity or a sacrifice called pravargya, um, the Lord became his son because he did it out of devotion for the Lord. So if you see, the demigods, when they reward on um, so this was Ishtan bhogan hi vodeva dasyante yajna bhavita tairdatan apradaya yubdo yogam testene vasa. So dasyante yajna bhavita means what? Dasyante means to provide or give, award. Yeah, dasyante yajna bhavita, being satisfied by the performance of sacrifices. It's like a business transaction. You do the sacrifice, they are satisfied. Okay, fine. Of course, there has to be some respect. Otherwise, the very performance of yajna means to accept the supremacy of the superior nature of the demigods and the supremacy of the Lord, even though officially, even though not devotionally. Dasanta yajna bhavita. According to yajna, one gets the. But with any amount of yajna, we cannot get the Supreme Personality of God. There is no ingredients that can enable us to purchase the Supreme Personality of God. There is a classic pastime of, there is a movie also in Telugu, Tulabharam, Sri Krishna Tulabharam, where, the weighing scale was there, and Rukmini and Satyabhama, they were having this competition of who can purchase Krishna. So Satyabhama, of course, Satyabhama is also a great devotee, but to teach us, Satyabhama is always very explosive in her character. 1 second, something happened. See, the camera feed went off. Krishna. Can you bring the other camera, bro? Again, this kind of, I don't know why this happens. Okay. So Satyabhama's character was always very explosive. She was, fighting nature. So there's female enviousness and rivalry among Rukmini and Satyabhama. So Satyabhama was, very proud of her, opulence. She wanted to show that she can buy Krishna with her opulence, and she was putting all her gold and everything on one side of the scale, and Krishna was on the other side. And how much ever she put on the scale, Krishna was not going up. Not going up. She put everything she had, and she became a pauper after that. Actually, it's working now somehow. Let's keep it. Huh? No, leave it. Leave it, bro. No.
Why triangle?
She could not purchase him. And she became completely, she had nothing more to offer. Everything she had, she put on that scale. Then Rukmini Devi, with great devotion, she put just one tulsi leaf on one side of the scale. Immediately Krishna was on tulsi leaf with devotion. So this pastime is there. It shows that just devotion, although Krishna said paraphernalia, like patram pushpam phalam toyam, you may bhaktya prayachasi. If it is given with bhakti, I will accept. Otherwise, Krishna did not accept a great feast in the house of Duryodhana, but he ate banana peels in the house of Vidura. So it does not mean that I have devotion, so I can offer Krishna some banana skin. That is not devotion. Out of ecstasy, Vidura, we did not know what he was giving. That is different stage. It is a bhava, so I don't need to do very nicely. That is actually sahajya. Sahajya means to take everything very cheaply. Oh, Krishna is after all, bhavagrahi. I have bhava. Who says I have bhava? Who is judging? I am judging. So we cannot use this for our. Krishna knows how much bhava we have. If I am not even careful of doing anything properly, then what bhava is that? But there is another stage where the devotee does not do it carefully or makes a lot of mistakes, and that is even higher bhava. There is a nice. The other day we were reading in the Nectar of Devotion that one gopi, Krishna drew on her body some drawings, and then he drew it very nicely, beautifully. Then Radharani saw, I don't think Krishna was attracted to you. Because you see, he drew it very perfectly. That means his mind was not agitated when he saw you. So she wanted to prove herself superior. So when Krishna is with her, he makes all kinds of mistakes. And that means he is really actually, you are not so attractive to Krishna. Okay, fine. The gopi was showing that Krishna drew over me. Radharani was saying, okay, yeah. But he drew it very nicely. That means he was so concentrated, he could not agitate his mind. So that's another stage where a devotee is so much like Prabhupada, one, I think Australia, if I'm not wrong, he was installing the deities and he installed the deities and he was doing the arati and he was making all mistakes. Like he was offering flour before the water and everything. Then, because he was very anxious, Krishna, I'm leaving you in the hands of mlechas and chandalas. So he was very anxious. So that's a very high stage of devotion. You cannot say, oh, Prabhupada making mistake. No, his mistake means actually he is so much absorbed in thought of Krishna and anxious for Krishna. That is different. But if I am anxious for my sense gratification and in that I don't do any proper service, that is not even the same. It's total opposite. Laziness. So I have to, that is bhava. So in fact, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna explains the deity worship in the 11th canto, 27th chapter in great detail. And there he says you have to offer excellent offerings of, all kinds of foodstuffs and, paraphernalia to the Lord. That is called tadiya. Tadiya means paraphernalia used in worship of the Lord, to serve the Lord. It should be the best. Should be the best. That means it is actual bhava. Krishna he deserves the best with that feeling. Vidura also had that feeling, but in his ecstasy, he was totally unmindful of what he was doing. So then that is bhavagrahi. But in our case, bhavagrahi means detail, attention to detail, and immaculate, attention, full attention. Even Arjuna, he was fighting for Krishna, but he had to have full attention. So we have to do with full attention. That is the idea. So bhavagrahi janardana, he accepts the bhava. So this another example is there in the 10th canto, 70th chapter, 72nd chapter. It's around the second chapter. You see, Shukadeva Goswami said, one day as King Yudhishthira sat in the royal assembly surrounded. This is one. Wait, 1 second. See, Yudhishthir Maharaj also performed similar seemingly karmakandi activity of Rajasuya Yajna. Now here there is a mention of why King Yudhishthir, I mean, he's already a great devotee, why he has to do all this kind of things. Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha Kraturajena Govinda Rajasuyena Pavani Yakshe Vibhutir Bhavatas Tatsampadayana Prabho. Yudhishthira said, O Govinda, I desire to worship your auspicious opulent expansions by the Rajasuya sacrifice, the king of Vedic ceremonies. Please make our endeavor a success, my lord. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami states that the word Vibhuti refers to Lord Krishna's expansions, Amshan, and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur further explains that here the word Vibhuti refers to Lord Krishna's opulent expansions within this world, such as the demigods and other empowered beings. Thus, Srila Prabhupada treats this verse as follows in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Krishna book. My dear Lord Krishna, the sacrifice known as the Rajasuya Yajna is to be performed by the emperor and it is considered the king of all sacrifices. By performing the sacrifice, I wish to satisfy all the demigods who are your empowered representatives within this material world, and I wish that you will kindly help me in this great venture so that it may be successfully executed. As far as the Pandavas are concerned, we have nothing to ask from the demigods. We are personally fully satisfied to be your devotees. As you say in the Bhagavad Gita, persons bewildered by material desires worship the demigods. But my purpose is different. I want to perform this Rajasuya sacrifice and invite the demigods to show that they have no power independent of you, that they are all your servants and you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Foolish persons with a poor fund of knowledge consider your Lordship an ordinary human being. Sometimes they try to find fault in you, and sometimes they defame you. Therefore, I wish to perform this Rajasuya Yajna. I wish to invite all the demigods, beginning from Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and all, other exalted chiefs of the heavenly planets, and in that great assembly of demigods from all parts of the universe, I want to substantiate that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that everyone is your servant. So you see how Yudhishthira Maharaj reason of performing the same Rajasuya sacrifice is totally different from another ordinary king. He could not take it that Krishna is being insulted, Krishna is being ridiculed, people find fault with Krishna. As a devotee, he could not stand. So he performed the Rajasuya sacrifice as a means to preach the supremacy of Krishna. And there in that assembly, Bhishmadev was selected as the great personality, but Bhishmadev stood up and said that I am nothing. People, give me great credit that I am a great brahmachari. But what kind of brahmachari am I? I happen to be a brahmachari only because I stayed away from women. But Krishna in the presence of all women is not agitated. That is real brahmachari. And he is the greatest person in this assembly. So in this way, Krishna's greatness was established firmly in the Rajasuya sacrifice. So similarly, Nabhi also performed this Pravargya Karmakandi activity. But he wanted the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his son. Similarly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur engaged in, with his wife, sexual intercourse. But for what? To, get a ray of Vishnu, to preach. He wanted a preacher who can widely preach. So yesterday I was reading from the book Brahmana and Vaishnava by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and in that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is explaining about Vaishnava and Avaishnava. Who is Vaishnava, who is Avaishnava? So he quoted that verse, Asat Sangatyaga, E Vaishnavacha, Stri Sangi Ek Asadhu, Krishna Bhakta Ar. So he was explaining the word Stri Sangi. So who is Stri Sangi? The karma, those who are after karma and jnana, both are Stri Sangi. So there are one class of people who accept regulated association with women, that is within marriage, and one unregulated, illicit. So unregulated, of course, is Stri Sangi. But in the regulated, in the married life, if one gives up the association of devotees to be associated with his wife, if he cherishes the association of his wife more than the association of his devotees, he is also named as Stri Sangi. Only, but Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that if marriage is done only to increase the number of devotees in the world, that is not Stri Sangha. Only that person is not Stri Sangi. Otherwise, even in married life, if I am overly attached to my wife so much so that I prefer her association to the association of devotees, Stri Sangi. And Jnanis, those who are after speculative knowledge, those who are after dharma, artha, kama are also Stri Sangi, it is said there. And who are after moksha, they are not directly Stri Sangi, but they are just after opposite of material life. It's a relative position as opposed to material life. It's not an absolute position. Just absence of material life. So we cannot live in absence. We cannot live in void. So that has to be filled up by positive association. Otherwise, we will relapse into material association. So, although it is not directly Stri Sangi, this is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's explanation. Although it is not Stri Sangha, but it is indirect Stri Sangha, because it will lapse again to Stri Sangha. So the only people who are actually not Stri Sangha, even the yogis, we have information, Saubharimuni, Vishwamitra, many yogis like that, they also fall for even that Bishakisan in Bhaktivinoda Thakur Leela, that rascal. So he also had yogic power, but what he wanted, women. He wanted to impress some women and have them as gopis, and he has illicit sex. So in this way, nobody can actually control the senses unless he is devotee. His senses have to be fully engaged, complete engagement and satisfactory engagement. Material life, there is engagement. There was one video where I think it was from Art of Living or some Swami from their, I think, Ramakrishna Mission or this Art of Living Society or whatever. One sannyasi, he was giving some lecture in his college. So one student asked how to conquer sexual desire. So his answer was, see, when you are preparing for exam, do you think of sex, or you are focused, you want to pass the exam, study, cram as much as possible, you're busy. So keep yourself busy. So this is his answer. But the point is, we cannot be switched on all the time, right? And what kind of activity? It is out of perform out of stress. So that is not the way, because there is no higher engagement, there is no higher taste. So the answer should be that one has to become Krishna conscious. That is the only answer. Yes, we have to stay away, brahmacharya and all these things, yes, we have to stay away. That is only secondary rule. That is not the primary rule. To stay away from women does not mean that we don't have attraction for women. No. The only way it can go off is to be fully, you know, uh, saturated with Krishna consciousness instead of Nari consciousness, Stri consciousness. So, of course, there are many verses which have which are there on renunciation, on the disadvantage of having a family, and all these things. Those are only to warn us from the perilous effects of such association. But just by being negatively disposed towards that doesn't help us to become detached. Because we have no other definition of happiness if we are just in the void. Yes, it is suffering, but what is happiness? We don't know. Staying away from suffering is just, surviving. That is not happiness. Happiness means you have to be fully joyful, ecstatic, immersed. But that is not the case in just renunciation. But with proportionate attachment to Krishna, there will be proportionate detachment towards material things. Bhaktir pareshanubhava viraktir अन्यत्र चैषत्रिक एक काल प्रपद्यमानस्य यथाश्नतः शुस् तुष्टिः पुष्टिः क्षुदपायोनुघासम्. Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things, these three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. So, relief from hunger is the thing, the manifestation or the external manifestation of attachment to Krishna. Vairagya is a symptom, it is not the aim. It is a symptom of the person who has achieved Krishna consciousness. Now, Nabhi, he got the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is called Yajna Purusha, Bhagavantam Yajna Purusham. He is the beneficiary of all sacrifices. Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. Of all tapasya, he is the enjoyer. He is the enjoyer of all yajna. Now, he, accepted Nabhi out of his own free will. It was not that some demigods were pleased and therefore, Nabhi's desire was fulfilled. No, demigods cannot do this. They themselves, when they go to the ocean of milk, the shore, they cannot see the Lord themselves directly. Also, it says Sada Pashyanti Surya. But actually, the Lord relays the message to Brahma, who can see the Lord, and Brahma will explain to the Devatas what to do. What the Lord said. So, in this way, how can they have the power to give the Lord to anybody? A similar prayer was offered by the gopis. कात्यायनि महामाये महायोगिन्यधीश्वरी नन्दगोपसुतं देवी पतिं मे कुरुते नमः इति मन्त्रं जपन्त्यस्ताः पूजां चक्रुः कुमारिकाः. Each of the young unmarried girls performed her worship while chanting the following mantra. They did Katyayani Vrata. This is Katyayani Vrata. O goddess Katyayani, O great potency of the Lord, O possessor of great mystic power and mighty controller of all, please make the son of Nanda Maharaj my husband. I offer my obeisances unto you. So this is, they're praying to demigods, but their interest is Krishna. So they were worshipping Durga, Katyayani, but you see the way they were worshipping. They're not interested in any material thing. Whereas Durga Devi usually pray, they say, what is that? Dhanam Dehi, Rupavati, Bharya Dehi, Dehi only. Give me this. So in this way they are, begging her. They are also begging, but they are begging Krishna, Nanda Gopasutam Devi, Patim Me Kurte Namaha. So make him my husband. So gopis, and after this, of course, Vastraharan Leela happened, where Krishna fulfilled their desire of seeing them naked, and you know, only in front of husband and wife, a woman can become naked. So in that way, he fulfilled their desire. In that also, he has no lust. Krishna has, like he was not interested to see some naked woman, some pervert. No, and actually he can see the naked form of everyone anyway. Whether we are wearing clothes or not wearing, he is antaryami. He can see not only our body, skin, but inside also, inside our mind also, inside our intelligence also. He can what is not visible to him. So there is no blame that we can put on him for that, because he is antar bahir. Just because we wore clothes, he cannot see our naked form. He can see. Right? But the limitations that we have, Krishna does not have. But by doing the Vastraharan Leela, he just acknowledged the desire of the devotees because he is Bhaktavatsal. So to say that he is a lusty fellow, it is a very great offense, not understanding the potency of Krishna. He is Sarvajna. He knows everything. He says, Bahuni me vyatitani. You have taken many lives, Arjuna. You remember, don't remember, I remember. Vedaham samatitani vartamani cha Arjuna. Bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kasana. Neither space nor time can, obstruct his vision of anything. What are opaque for us is not opaque for him. He can see it as opaque or transparent, everything. He is within every andantarastha paramanu chayantarastham. So, the Lord is always independent of our, in fact, devotion. Now, here it is said, Bhaktyamam abhijanati, yavanyascha tattvataha. And in the Uddhava Gita also, Krishna says, Bhaktyaham ekaya grahya. Only by bhakti one can capture me. But actually, why bhakti can, with bhakti only Krishna can be captured? Because one of the aspects of bhakti is Krishna Karshini, Krishna Akarshini. So there are 6 aspects of, 6 effects of bhakti, analyzed by Rupa Goswami. It's quite weird. When I search the word, it doesn't come. Ah. Okay. Kleshagni. Oh. So this is from Rasamrita Sindhu 1170. Kleshagni Shubhada Moksha Laghutakrit Sudurlabha Chandrananda Visheshatma Shri Krishna Karshini Chasa. What is Kleshagni? So when one accepts devotional service, the effect is that Kleshagni, even for a beginner devotee, his troubles are minimized. Troubles are actually not because of external situations, because of our constant reaction to situations of this material world. It is our mind that is giving us trouble. Because in the same situations, the devotees don't have trouble, whereas the non-devotees have trouble. So how can the situations be the problem? Our mental disposition is the problem. So that's why Goswami, a person who has conquered his senses, what is that? Santushtya yena kenava. He is happy anywhere, in any situation, any time, any place. Sargapavarga narakeshu apitulyartha darshan. Vishwam purna sukhayate. Krishna said, Dukhalayam ashashvatam. For the devotee, Vishwam purna sukhayate. How come he is having happiness in this world? Because he is not in this material world. Kleshagni. Shubhada means giver of auspiciousness. Real auspiciousness starts here. The so-called auspiciousness of Karmakanda, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains in one of the Chaitanya Charitamrita purports, Suvishaya Kuvishaya, Suvishaya Garta, Kuvishaya Garta. Right. Goinjanam, what is that? Kuvishaya Vishthagarthe Diyache Kalai. Okay, this is Madhya. Who's this? Two brothers, yeah, this is the one. Okay. More karma, more hate galay bandhiya, kuvishaya vishtha garte diyache filaya. Two brothers, Sakar Malik and Dabir Khas, very humbly submitted that due to their abominable activities, they were now bound by the neck and hands and have been thrown into a ditch filled with abominable stool-like objects of material sense enjoyment. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explained, Kuvishaya Garta as follows. Because of the activities of senses, we become subjected to many sense gratificatory processes and are thus entangled by the laws of material nature. This entanglement is called Vishaya. When the sense gratificatory processes are executed by pious activity, they are called Suvishaya. The word Su means good and Vishaya means sense objects. When the sense gratificatory activities are performed under sinful conditions, they are called Kuvishaya, bad sense enjoyment. In either case, either Kuvishaya or Suvishaya, these are material activities. As such, they are compared to stool. In other words, such things are to be avoided. To become free from Suvishaya and Kuvishaya, one must engage himself in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The activities of devotional service are free from the contamination of material quality. Therefore, to be free from the reactions of Suvishaya and Kuvishaya, one must take to Krishna consciousness. That way, one will save himself from contamination. कर्मकांड ज्ञानकांड केवल विषय भंड अमृत बोलिया जेवा खाए नाना जोनी सदा फिरे कदर्य भक्षण करे तार जन्म आधा पाते जाए कदर्य भक्षण करे eating everything and anything nonsense. Actually, we should learn how to sing this song. So, both fall under the category of karmakanda, suvishaya, kuvishaya. So auspicious, we think Suvishaya is auspicious things. Oh, do something, what is that? Satyanarayan Vrat. Auspicious. What are they doing in the Satyanarayan Vrat? Huh? All asatya they are after. Narayan, yes, Ram Nam Satya, Narayan is Satya only. He is the supreme truth. Satyam Param Dhimahi. But they are interested in asatya. Asat. They read stories in Satyanarayan Vrata. All those, he worshipped Narayan and, he got a wife, beautiful wife. He worshipped Narayan and he got, a lot of wealth. These kind of stories. And that is their Vrata. All rascaldom. Devotees cannot do this kind of Satyanarayan. This is Asat Vrata. This is Asat Vrata. The real Shubhada means, auspiciousness means when we actually come back to our original position. Yeah. So, Kleshagni Shubhada, Moksha Labhuta Krit. Moksha means, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. It is considered one of the greatest achievement by Karmis and Jnanis. Moksha means, the greatest. But Moksha Labhuta Krit. It will make, Bhakti will make Moksha look very small. It will pale in comparison. This verse is there. This is also from Brahma Samhita, quoted in this verse, 737 purport. This is 1138 Bhaktirasamrita Sindhu. Brahmanando bhavedesha chetparardhaguni kritah naiti bhakti sukham bodhe paramanutulam api. If Brahmananda, the bliss of merging in the Brahman effulgence, this is so-called moksha, were multiplied 100 trillion times, it would still not equal even an atomic fragment of the ocean of transcendental bliss felt in devotional service. 100 trillion times of Brahmananda is not even equal to a drop of the ocean. You know, just imagine. So moksha labhuta. Then sandrananda visheshatma. Ananda means happiness, bliss. Sandra means dense. Dense. So Sandrananda means what? Dense bliss. What kind of word is that? So that means um, like forgetfulness of Krishna, remembrance of Krishna. So now our remembrance of Krishna is very sporadic and here and there only. Sometimes we're remembering Krishna, most of the time we're forgetting. So there's a huge gap, right? So when one comes to Namabhas, then he is constantly remembering Krishna at every moment. So there is no gap. So it is more dense. And in Shuddhanam, it is stacked. So there is dense happiness. Like it's like milk. It can be dilute with water, or even when it is just milk, it is still thin. Although it is only milk, but it is still thin. As we cook it down, it becomes thicker and thicker and thicker, more dense, more tasty, more flavorful. So, Sandrananda Visheshatma means special soul. One becomes a special soul at this time, Mahatma. And he experiences ecstasy, not just, peace. Peace is a byproduct. Peace is just like some absence of misery for a while. Relief, little bit relief. No, that is, relief from suffering is a kleshagni already done. So we are not talking about peace, we are talking about joy, ecstasy. Ecstasy is the word, which is just dense happiness. Sandrananda. And Sri Krishna Akarshini Chasa. So devotion, bhakti attracts Krishna also. But it is not that, it is by Krishna's mercy that it attracts Krishna. Not that I have some power to attract Krishna with some my devotion. No, Krishna obliges. And it is for our, in fact, he always loves us actually. We only have a problem loving him. So, and when we turn to him, he becomes very happy. And he cooperates and reciprocates. Actually, he always reciprocates. We are the ones who don't reciprocate. And when we reciprocate, then we will start to feel, the happiness. And Nabhi, he came as, Rishabdev came as the son of Nabhi. He agreed to accept Nabhi as father, just like Vasudeva. So such appearance of the Lord is not by ordinary sexual intercourse. That is also explained, right? This one? 10:3. Yeah. ततो जगन्मङ्गलमच्युतांशं समाहितं शूरसुतेन देवी दधार सर्वात्मकमात्मभूतं काष्ठा यथानन्दकरं मनस्तः. Thereafter, accompanied by plenary expansions, the fully opulent Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is Krishna's birth, the pregnancy of Devaki, the fully opulent Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's all auspicious for the entire universe, was transferred from the mind of Vasudeva to the mind of Devaki. Devaki, having thus been initiated by Vasudeva, became beautiful by carrying Lord Krishna, the original consciousness for everyone, the cause of all causes, within the core of her heart, just as the east becomes beautiful by carrying the rising moon. As indicated here by the word Manastaha, Supreme Personality of Godhead was transferred from the core of Vasudeva's mind or heart to the core of the heart of Devaki. We should note carefully that the Lord was transferred to Devaki not by ordinary way for a human being, but by Diksha or initiation. Thus, the importance of initiation is mentioned here. Unless one is initiated by the right person, who always carries within his heart the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot acquire the power to carry the Supreme Godhead within the core of one's own heart. The word Achyutamsham is used because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Shadaishwarya Purna. Okay, this is the next part of the point is what I was trying to make is this initiation. So the Lord took birth from Devaki, and Devaki became pregnant by Vasudeva by initiation. So the disciple also becomes pregnant with Krishna consciousness by initiation process, and this initiation not only means the ceremony, the transcendental knowledge given by the Guru is one thing, is always actually there. The devotees are always preaching. But when the disciple agrees that Sarvameta Dhritam Manye Yanma Vadasi Keshav, Sarvameta Dhritam Manye, so I accept whatever you say. And then finally he said, Karishya Vachanam Tava, I will do as you ask me to do, as you order me. When he said that, Bhagavad Gita was finished. That is the end of Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna was talking, but the moment when Arjuna agreed, that is. So actually, Prabhupada quotes this Diksha when in Hawaii in 1975, I think, because this Tushta Krishna Swami, one of the disciples, he had different idea. Uh, he was thinking like, we should not push people, into surrendering. It should come naturally in their heart. But so Prabhupada was explaining to him this point that preaching means to convince the non-devotee to become devotee. And he quoted this thing that Yathechasa Tatha Kuru, and even when he asked him, he only said Yathechasa Tatha Kuru at the end. Although he said, you do as you please. Arjuna was doing as he was pleasing in the beginning. Krishna corrected that. You are doing wrong. After explaining everything, and now you do as you please. Then Arjuna said, Karishya Vachanam Tava, I will do as you say. That's when Krishna said, yes, this is surrender. Then Krishna stopped his instruction. Finished. So, so Prabhupada was saying that is initiation. Initiation means the disciple means he is agreeing to be disciplined. Karishya Vachanam Tava means what? Discipline. Where I don't listen to my mind, I listen to the Guru's orders, not my mind's orders. That is initiation. Initiation does not mean just transferring, because many sometimes Ritvik also, so-called Prabhupada Anugas, they call themselves, and they say that, oh, Prabhupada books are there, he's already initiated you, you have already his books. Yeah. Yes, technically, yes, it started, but how wholeheartedly am I taking? So, the Diksha ceremony is the real Diksha is when we accept. The real Diksha is when we accept wholeheartedly the order of the Guru. But to solidify and to give us the, it's just like marriage, right? A man and a woman, they can live together and produce children, but it is done in presence of everyone, in the presence of fire, in the presence of deity, in presence of devotees, or at least relatives, if not devotees. So that it is a declaration. So that tomorrow I cannot have an illicit affair. No, actually this is my wife. Everybody saw what happened. That is your wife. So it is to guard oneself. So if one can actually accept the order of the Guru, that is initiation. But we do it in front of Vaishnavas, in front of spiritual masters, in front of deities, in front of the fire, which is a representation of Vishnu. Because we are declaring now, in presence of everyone, that I am going to follow. So I cannot break the vow. So many witnesses are there. Witnesses are always there, even without doing all that. Because, even if we try to hide something, our sinful activity, we cannot hide. Yamadutas, they say this, they gave this argument, right? सूर्योग्निः खं मरुद्देवः सोमः सन्ध्याहनी दिशः कंकुः स्वयं धर्म इति हेते दैह्यस्य साक्षिणः The sun, fire, sky, air, demigods, moon, evening, day, night, directions, water, land, and Supersoul himself all witness the activities of living. So witnesses are there. But we forget. Therefore, we think we're alone, we think we can do something independently. That is our problem. So, it is basically to reinstate our mind only. But these are not the real things, the real ingredients of the initiation, are not the fire, are not the grains that we throw into the fire, not just like Agni, I mean, this Nabhi is in sacrifice. The ingredients of the sacrifice, the Ritvik, you mentioned the Ritvik, and all the other, they are not the ingredient, they are not the things that will, by which Krishna can be purchased. Similarly, in the initiation also, the sacrifice is not our acceptance of the order. That is real initiation, the essence of initiation. Karishya Vachanam Tava, how much we are as Karishya Vachanam Tava? What did we understand? What did we listen? Before Karishya Vachanam Tava, he had so many doubts, and Arjuna asked so many questions. In every chapter, he is asking questions, and Krishna is answering. Once he was convinced, okay, Karishya Vachanam Tava. Yes, now I understand why I should do this. Why you asked me to do this. I will do it. Even after that, also Krishna, tested him. His son was killed. Now what will happen? Are you going to leave the battle? No, he did not leave. He fought even more valiant. So, these are to control our mind. To control our mind, to convince us ourselves. Even this saffron cloth does not mean one is renowned. Cloth doesn't mean anything. Anybody can wear. Who cannot wear a saffron cloth? It doesn't cost much. It doesn't, anything. But the thing is, the acceptance of how much we have accepted. And it is not that one who has undergone the Diksha ceremony is now, properly initiated. But if my mind is not into Karishya Vachanam Tava, that initiation is practically useless. Useless. So, just some formalities, these are not spiritual life. This is not a show, an event. It's not an event in time. Oh, this date I was initiated, there is an event. No, just like marriage. The wedding is an event, but the marriage is is a whole institution in itself. There's a home ministry that is governing everything. So, similarly, initiation is, a ceremony, but the thing is our acceptance. So, bhavagrahya. The last point before we end is Acharya Santan. This is also a phrase that I saw in that book, Brahmana and Vaishnava, by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he divided that book, that essay, into three three parts, three sections. Prakriti Jana Kanda, Harijana Kanda, Vyavahara Kanda. So in the first, he's explaining Prakriti Jana, materialistic people. Smartas also come under that. Then Harijana Kanda, then Vyavahara Kanda. I have not come to Vyavahara, I am reading Harijana Kanda. Then after that, after the whole thing is finished, there are some essays of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and also some by Bhaktivinoda Thakur on the same topic of Brahmana and Vaishnava that were added as appendix. So in that there is one article where Acharya Santan, Acharya Vamsha, and all these words are analyzed by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So a spiritual master can have his family members and also his disciples. Now both are part of Vamsha of the spiritual master. But Santan is usually used for the seminal descent, the family wise. Um, but both are come under Vamsha, seminal land. But the ones who are seminal of seminal descent, that means by son and family wise, if they do not follow the principles set out by the Acharya, they are not to be accepted as good. Respect should be given as part of Acharya Santan, but not taken instructions from. You cannot take instructions from them. Um, and the real followers can come sometimes from Santan also. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Same family, but both are acharyas. But they became acharya not just because he was son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. There were many sons of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Not all of them became acharya. Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur became. Because he truly followed everything, and of course he is of course sent by Krishna. Um, so the dynasties that we are reading now, like Priyavrata, Dhruv Maharaj, Swayambhu Manu, and down Nabhi, Rishabha, Bharat Maharaj, these dynasties and many other dynasties are mentioned. So they are worthy of reading their names even only because they are also following. And of course, there are some who don't follow, they are also there, but they are also there to tell us that this by birth thing is not a valid consideration. And in the Brahmana Vaishnava book, many examples that who Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur quotes. And interestingly, that story which Prabhupada said, where that tribal boy who took initiation from Gautam Muni, he was a tribal boy. He came to Gautam Muni. He said, "I want to become Brahmana." Um, truthfulness. You know the story? Huh? Yeah. Yeah. So the Gautam Muni asked him, "Who is your father? Are you Brahmana? Because I only take Brahmanas as my disciples. Are you Brahmana?" He said, "I don't know." "Who's your father? Is he Brahmana?" "I don't know my father. Never seen him." "Oh, okay. You ask your mother." Then he went and asked his mother. She said, I I was serving as a maid in many places, and I don't know who's your father actually." So then he came, and he was not just a boy, did not understand what it meant. He was grown up. He understood what it meant that his mother was sleeping around. And then he came and told Gautam Muni, "Actually, you know what? My mother also doesn't know, so I don't know who my father is." Then he said, I'll initiate you. Please always stay like this." And his name is Satyakam Jabala. His name is Satyakam. And Jabala is his mother's name. So because he's son of Jabala, he's Jabala. Satyakam Jabala. That story, which that Prabhupada said, that actually is from Chandogya Upanishad. And he quoted the entire Sanskrit of it. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in that. So one of the examples where, person who's not of Brahmana birth is Brahmana in that way. So it is always by qualification that ultimately everyone is judged. One can be son of anything or daughter of anything, but if he himself is not qualified, it is only an advantage. So we are reading these dynasties, but also they are qualified in many respects, and we are learning from them. And we are also learning how, like Agnidhra, he fell from a position of, not fell, I mean his father was a great Vaishnava, but his position was much lesser in that sense. He was saved by his son, of course, Nabhibu. And how such a thing can happen, all these things are mentioned. So we can learn all these intricacies of life by studying this, Bhagavatam scrutinizingly. So I'd like to stop here. Any questions or comments on this topic? Vyavahar is their behavior. So that is in the book Brahmana and Vaishnava. Kanda is basically section. Vyavahar means, what is your understanding of Vyavahar? Yeah. So Vyavahar Kanda, I don't know what he explained in Vyavahar Kanda yet because I have not read that. But I think my guess is that he is talking about the behavior of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. I'm thinking. But he named the sections like that: Prakriti Janakanda, Harijanakanda, and Vyavahara Kanda. I'm yet to read, so I can't say much. So, any other question? Hmm. Yes. When they are used for Krishna, they become Tadiya. Paraphernalia becomes Tadiya if it is used for Krishna. But they are also called Dravya. Dravya means basically things. Tadiya means Krishna's things. Tad means him. Tasya means his. Tadiya also means his. So his things. Tadiyanam. Of course, there are four things, right? You know, right? Tadiya means four things. Aradhananam sarvesham Vishnu aradhanam param tasmat parataram devi tadiyanam samarchanam. So Tadiya means Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes four. 322 125. Tadiya Tulasi Vaishnav Mathura Bhagavat. Ei charir seva hoy Krishner abhimat. Tadiya means the Tulasi leaves the devotees of Krishna, the birthplace of Krishna, Mathura, and the Vedic literature Srimad Bhagavatam. So Krishna is very eager to see his devotees serve these four things, namely Tulasi, Vaishnava, Mathura, and Bhagavatam. That's why in the lecture also, Prabhupada lecture, he explains every morning when we sing this. What is that? 1 to 18. नष्टप्राय स्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया then bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. The fixation of one's mind on Krishna can happen if we do Bhagavat seva. Interesting, Prabhupada explains also very nicely. To fix our mind on Krishna, it is not said Bhagavan sevaya, but Bhagavat sevaya. That we have to serve the devotee, Nityam, then we can our Naishtiki, Bhakti become Naishtiki, Nishtha. So that is Tadiya. So that's why Madbhakta Puja Bhyathika, 11th Kanda. Krishna says, my devotee's worship is higher than mine, my worship. And of course, things, Tulsi and Mathura means what? The birthplace of Krishna. And also means all the temple also is Tadiya. And every paraphernalia of the temple is Tadiya. Everything that is used for Krishna is Tadiya. So any other questions? Stop here. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Prabhupada ki, Jai Gaur Premanand.